In the serene town of Bushey, Hertfordshire, a horrifying crime shattered the peace and left the community in mourning. In July 2024, 3 women, Carol Hunt and her daughters Hannah and Louise, were brutally murdered in their own home. The perpetrator, Bradley Clifford, a former soldier and ex-boyfriend of Louise, orchestrated a calculated attack that would shock the nation.
Police launched an overnight manhunt to try and track down the suspect, and that manhunt has come to an end.
It's a very self-centred note. There's no apology to the Hunt family, is there?
You approached a second time with a bag of Louise's clothes and a thank you card to Carol and John Hunt, obviously part of a plan to trick Mrs. Hunt into letting you in the house.
Welcome to Inside the Cordon. This case sparked a large debate here in the UK. As you may know, weapons are strictly prohibited here, but one weapon that's readily accessible is the crossbow. With most being available through online orders, recently, sales have tripled, with doomsday preppers fearing the end times. This case covers one individual that took advantage of the availability of this deadly weapon to carry out a heinous act of revenge. This is the case of the UK crossbow killer. Carol Hunt was a devoted mother of 3 and the wife of a popular BBC sports commentator, John Hunt. Known for her warmth and kindness, Carol was the matriarch of a close-knit family. Her daughters Amy, Hannah and Louise were equally cherished. Hannah, a beautician, was admired for her creativity and a dedication to her clients, while Louise, who ran a dog grooming business from the rear of the parents' property, was passionate about animals. She had a vibrant personality that endeared her to many. The Hunt family was well respected in the community and were often described as loving and supportive. But then enters Kyle Clifford. Kyle, who was 26 at the time of the attack, was from Enfield, North London, and was known as a bully in school. He'd also been arrested in his late teens for possession of cannabis and an assault without injury, although this didn't actually result in any charges. He is the brother of Bradley Clifford. Bradley, who was 4 years older than Kyle, in 2018 was convicted of the murder of Soban Khan. 18-year-old Soban was a pillion passenger on a moped and had smashed a bottle on Bradley's pride and joy, a red Ford Mustang, during a road rage incident where Bradley was drunk behind the wheel. Bradley then chased the moped at double the speed for the roads of Enfield, eventually smashing into the moped that was being ridden by Joshua Francis. Francis luckily escaped injury, but Soban was badly injured, and Bradley continued to hit Soban whilst he lay dying on the ground. After his brother went to prison, Kyle talked well of Bradley, referring to him as a geezer to his friends and colleagues. In 2019, Kyle joined the British Army as a trooper in the Queen's Dragoon Guards, although he shouldn't receive any credit for this service, as he spent 286 days of his 2-year service on sick leave. He was never operational, and he was discharged in 2022, with his commanding officer stating that Kyle's character was wholly unsuited to military employment and that he has no care or concern beyond himself. After this brief military stint, he started working at a fire and security firm as an installer, and then as a security guard at a catering supply company. Acquaintances described him as pretty normal and a nice guy, although those closer to him noted an immaturity and a tendency towards controlling behaviour in personal relationships. Kyle began dating Louise Hunt in early 2023 after meeting on a dating app. Their relationship lasted just 18 months, during which Louise reportedly experienced increasing discomfort due to Kyle's behaviour. Louise's family described Kyle as disrespectful, rude and odd, and friends noticed Louise wearing less makeup and being absent at gatherings where male friends were present. In 2024, Kyle was actually fired from his job, And although there isn't an official statement as to why he was sacked, it's alleged that it was due to him making misogynistic comments towards a female colleague. Kyle and Louise then attended a wedding together in Scarborough, over 4 hours drive away from the home. Kyle was said to have poked fun at Louise several times, bragged about sleeping with other women, and called out her cooking skills. This was the final straw for Louise. The day after, the pair travelled back home, and that evening, Louise texts Kyle telling him that they definitely needed to have a conversation, that he'd made her feel embarrassed and belittled, and that he had no respect for her feelings. Then Kyle replied that he's not going to take any shit from Louise and that he'd be damned if he had to beg her. The text continued until the next day, and they planned to meet up face to face so Louise could break up with him. But as she left her driveway, she bumped into a telephone pole on the street. Her sister Hannah then decided to drive her to see Kyle, as Louise was in no fit state to drive. Hannah regularly texted her boyfriend with updates, the first being, they've pretty much broken up, but she wants some form of closure. Hopefully, we won't be there long. After Kyle and Louise had met up and spoken for a while, Hannah messaged her boyfriend again, saying she's okay, but he's turned on the waterworks. Now she's a little bit confused, so she's taken a few days to think about it. Then Louise ended the relationship on June the 26th, opting to ratify her position over a text message.
Good morning. Hope you're doing okay this morning. I'm sorry, Kyle, but I feel I can't continue with what we have. I feel like it's been broken, and I can't ignore how I've been feeling or made to feel in our relationship over the course of the year. I don't know that in the future, if we both do the work on ourselves, this could be something amazing, but I just feel right now I owe it to myself to take some space and walk away for my own sanity and health. Thank you for the incredible time we've had this year. I hope you know how much I love you and still will for a long time. I never want there to be anything nasty between us, ever. Take care of yourself always, please.
Kyle seemed to accept the breakup, but unbeknownst to Louise, he'd actually begun plotting a horrific act of revenge. And in the 13 days following the breakup, Kyle meticulously planned an attack. Here's what happened according to the police investigation. 2 days after the breakup, on the 28th of July, Kyle was seen ordering 30 meters of rope from a tool station. He then went home and researched crossbows on Google. He then searched for and watched a viral video of Linda D'Souza from Wandsworth Prison. This video was where the prison officer Linda had relations with one of the inmates. On the 1st of July, he spoke with his brother over the phone about buying a crossbow and a Japanese sword. He also looked online for an air rifle and then spent some time on Carol's Facebook before he went off to the gym. 2 days on, Kyle purchased a Horizon Corner MXT crossbow for £350 that came with 6 bolts and a cocking device. He then researched air guns a little bit more and opted to buy a Glock air pistol for £240, although this would never get delivered. On the 4th of July, he was spotted on camera purchasing 2 large cans of petrol from Halfords and then bought 2 rolls of duct tape from a B&Q hardware store. Later on this day, Louise actually contacted Kyle about a post he put on Instagram about his dog passing away. I'm not sure whether Kyle used this as some sort of manipulation to get Louise to contact him because he knew how much she loved dogs. It was shortly after Louise would actually start some notes on her phone titled, "Look When You Feel Sad." The purpose of this was to remind her of all the reasons why she wouldn't want to get back with Kyle. The notes included, his family's a mess, racist comments, he doesn't like transgenders, road rage, belittling language, he says he has a higher IQ than all of my family. It was then on the 7th of July that he took delivery of a £90 high-end butcher's knife. On the 9th of July at 9:54, Kyle attended a garden centre with his mum, dad and niece. He then went home, but then Kyle started the 30-minute drive from his house in Enfield to Bushy, where Louise lived. Kyle is then caught on CCTV parking his Seat Ibiza in the street around the corner from Louise's house. He then checks which cars are parked outside Louise's noting that there were 3 cars. Worried that John Hunt would be home, he then goes back to his car and searches horse racing today. With John Hunt being a horse racing commentator, it was easy to see that he was at work. Kyle then moves his car closer to the home, gets out with a white plastic bag, a rucksack, and then knocks on the front door. It's Carol that answers the door, and the Ring doorbell captures the whole conversation. Kyle mentions that he started therapy. Carol was sympathetic and caring. She always was. It was actually Carol that had noticed Kyle's immaturity and ill fit for Louise at the earliest, but had always been nice to him for Louise's sake. He then asked for a plastic bag to place Louise's stuff in that he was returning, and as he enters the home, he retrieves a knife from his rucksack. Carol is then heard screaming on the doorbell cam. Post-mortem showed 8 stab wounds to Carol in her torso and her back. After this, Kyle goes back to his car to get the crossbow. He then uses Carol's key to re-enter the home, and then he waits for over an hour for Louise to finish work. As we know, Louise used an outbuilding at the rear of the property to conduct a business, and clients would actually use the side gate to access the rear of the property. It's actually crazy to think that for nearly 2 hours, Louise and her clients were just meters away from Carol's body. At 4:12, Louise enters the home only to be met by Kyle, who quickly restrained her. He then interrogates her for nearly 3 hours, in which time he also essayed Louise. He also uses Louise's phone to message her dad to find out what time he would be back home, to which John replied that he would be late back that day. At 7:10, Hannah arrived home, and as Kyle realises she's outside, he turned the crossbow on Louise and fired it into her back. Once Hannah's inside, she can be heard arguing with Kyle, and then a second swooshing noise can be heard. Kyle had fired the crossbow at Hannah's chest. Clifford can then be seen nonchalantly leaving the Hunt's residence and driving away in his car. At this point, Hannah is still alive and manages to call the police and inform them of what has just happened, and also that Kyle is responsible. Kyle then goes on the run straight away, and a massive manhunt ensues. Kyle was located the next day in a cemetery just meters away from his own home. When police arrive, Kyle shoots himself with his crossbow in an attempt to escape justice. He was taken into custody, but then had to spend some time in hospital. He was now paralysed from the waist down, and it would be 10 weeks before the police were able to interview him. Although it was a no-comment interview from Kyle, the police had done the research and were able to put some damning evidence to him.
Do you accept, Kyle, that based on the evidence, that this is a premeditated murder of 3 people?
No comment.
Do you accept that you have meticulously planned this murder from the moment that you split up Louise?
No comment.
From the moment that she sent you that text message at the end of June, you began to plan her murder? Yes?
No comment.
It's evident quite clearly from your purchase of the crossbow, from your purchase of the additional bolts, from the purchase of the gun and the knife, in the 2 weeks leading up to the murders. Do you agree?
No comment.
Do you agree that it shows that you only had one thing in mind, and that planning began when you purchased these items? You purchased rope and you purchased duct tape in order to restrain Louise and Hannah and Carol, didn't you?
No comment.
6 days before this happened, you make these significant purchases that really only have one plausible explanation, didn't you?
No comment.
The only plausible explanation is that they were purchased in order for you to carry out these murders. Do you agree?
No comment.
You got to the address and you came well prepared. You came prepared with Louise's belongings, didn't you?
No comment.
Louise's belongings were your ticket into that address. Yes?
No comment.
You deceived your way into that address at the front door with Carol, pretending that you were having a civil and friendly conversation and returning Louise's property, and you'd even written out a thank you card. Yes?
No comment.
Next thing I'd like to speak to you about, Kyle, is some more information, some more evidence that we've obtained from the download of your mobile phone. So on the mobile phone, in the notes section, there is a note which is titled Last Letter, and it's written to different family members, has individual paragraphs addressed to each individual family member. This item was created on the 26th of June, and the last modification was on the 7th of July. The opening part of the note reads as such: "Please don't think of this as me throwing my life away. I have lived, and I am grateful for everything and everyone that has been a part of it. It is now my time to leave and be at peace, as this is what I ultimately want. I know you will all have so many questions and wish you could have done something different to prevent this. However, none of you have failed, and there is simply nothing any of you could have done. This is my decision to just be at peace. You all have to take care of each other and speak to each other, as that will be the best thing for you all. I love you all so much." You okay, Carl? To carry on? When you wrote that note, had you already planned the murders of Louise, Carol and Hannah? So I'm interested in the words "prevent this." So tell me what you mean by "prevent this."
No comment.
Do you mean the murders of Carol, Hannah and Louise?
No comment.
The next note is addressed to myself. "I don't want to live my life without her. I don't want to experience new things. Nothing I can think of can make me happy. I know I could have gone to therapy, found faith, and become a new, better person, but I just simply don't want to. I'm so sorry I didn't wait to move on and find my future wife, have the children I always wanted." What do you mean by that?
No comment.
Explain to me why you decided to deprive Hannah and Louise of that privilege.
No comment.
What gave you the right to do that?
No comment.
What gave you the right to deprive Carol of seeing her future grandchildren?
No comment.
It's a very self-centred note and doesn't take into account anybody else. Do you agree with that?
No comment.
There's no apology to the Hunt family, is there?
No comment.
The only apology is to yourself. Do you feel that these are quite self-centred words?
No comment.
Why didn't you seek help, Kyle?
No comment.
You couldn't be bothered, is what the letter suggests. Am I wrong?
No comment.
You don't want to live your life without her. Explain that.
No comment.
But of course, you sit here in front of us and she's dead. Tell me how this has happened.
No comment.
Is your intention to make people feel sorry for you writing these letters?
No comment.
Look at your behaviour. Look how calmly and nonchalantly you walk away from that house. You've just killed 3 people and you stroll away like you're going down the shops. It wasn't a crime of passion. It wasn't a loss of control. You didn't go to the address and all of a sudden form this intent to kill Carol, kill Louise, kill Hannah. You'd gone there with that sole intention in mind. You went there, the CCTV footage shows throughout that you are cool, you are calm, you're collected, you're considered. There is nothing about that which suggests that you've gone there for anything else than to kill an almost entire family. I'm right in what I'm saying, aren't I, Kyle?
No comment.
Please correct me if I am completely wrong.
Carl Clifford was charged with 3 counts of murder, SA, false imprisonment, and possession of 2 offensive weapons. In December 2024, he attended Cambridge Crown Court and pled not guilty to all the charges. But then in a separate hearing in January, he pled guilty to the murders and all other charges, but he denied the SA. At trial in March 2025, he was found guilty of SA, with the jury deliberating for just 45 minutes, and was sentenced to a whole life order, ensuring he would never be released from prison.
I have heard John Hunt, Amy Hunt and Alex Klein speak of their dreadful loss. They were difficult to listen to, given the devastation and heartbreak they recounted. They spoke of Carol, Louise and Hannah as bringing joy, colour and happiness into the lives of everyone they knew. They were funny, hard-working and caring people. Each precious life, so full of potential, of future successes and celebrations, torn away by your appalling violence. The statements of John and Amy Hunt also demonstrated great courage and determination that your terrible crimes will not define them or stop them leading the lives that Carol, Louise and Hannah Hunt would have wished for them. They showed a gentle heroism of which you, Carl Clifford, can only dream. I now need to set out the technical legal reasoning behind the sentences I have decided upon. I am satisfied, so that I am sure, that you both planned and contemplated killing all three of your victims. I've already mentioned your planning. You knew the routine and habits of that household. You clearly anticipated that Carol Hunt would be in the house as you went equipped to trick your way inside. You must have known Louise Hunt would be working in the building in the garden, as you knew her routine, and she was the obvious target to be raped and murdered. You knew the routines of the household. You were there for over 4 hours and must have anticipated that Hannah Hunt would return. While you had used Louise Hunt's phone to ensure John Hunt would not be home any time soon, you made no such inquiry about Hannah. You would have known she wore a uniform for work, which she would be bound to come home to change before doing anything else in the evening. I am sure that Hannah, too, was part of your premeditation and that you intended to murder her if the chance presented itself. Those findings alone could lead to the imposition of a whole life term, but there are 4 further very serious aggravating factors. First, the relevant section of the schedule is triggered by, quote, the murder of 2 or more persons, I stress, or more. It seems to me the fact there were, quote, more, unquote, must be a relevant factor for a judge to have in mind. Otherwise, the courts would be saying the murder of 3 people added nothing to the sentence for the murder of 2, an unthinkable proposition. Second, the rape of Louise Hunt, of which the jury found you guilty last week, which offence was part of the same plan and the same course of conduct as the 3 killings. Third, these murders took place against a woman with whom you had been in an intimate relationship and her family, and so is within the Sentencing Council guidance on domestic abuse, which context makes crimes even more serious. Fourth, the murders of Louise and Hannah Hunt must have involved them becoming aware of the murders you had already committed, thereby inflicting dreadful mental suffering before death, a specified aggravating factor under the schedule. There are 3 matters of mitigation. First, your lack of previous convictions. Second, your relative youth, though you were already 26 years old by the time of these offences. Third, you pleaded guilty to the offences of murder, though not at the first opportunity. I have reflected on all 3 aspects. The Sentencing Council guidance makes clear there may be cases where a guilty plea should lead the court to draw back from imposing a whole life order. I have considered and rejected that course, as the factors in favour of such an order are so compelling that they far outweigh all those pieces of mitigation. I am left in no doubt that this is the sentence I must impose. The sentences I pass are therefore: for possession of an offensive weapon, the crossbow, 1 year's imprisonment, concurrent. For the possession of an offensive weapon, the knife, 1 year's imprisonment, concurrent. For the murder of Carol Hunt, life imprisonment with a whole life order, the early release provisions are not to apply. For the false imprisonment of Louise Hunt, 8 years imprisonment concurrent. For the rape of Louise Hunt, 20 years imprisonment concurrent. For the murder of Louise Hunt, life imprisonment with a whole life order. The early release provisions are not to apply. For the murder of Hannah Hunt, life imprisonment with a whole life order. The early release provisions are not to apply.
One thing that really stands out to me in this case is that Kyle used Louise's phone to try and find out how long it would be before John came home. I believe because he did this for John, but not for Hannah. He didn't want to risk fighting with John because maybe he knew that this was a fight that he wouldn't be able to win. He just wanted all 3 women, which is just pure cowardice. I am, for one, very happy that he'll be spending the rest of his life in prison, but also in a wheelchair. My heart goes out to John and his daughter Amy. The Hunt family's tragedy sparked a national conversation about domestic violence, mental health, and weapon regulations. Vigils were held, and public figures paid tribute to the victims. John Hunt, in his victim impact statement, praised his daughter's bravery when she ended the toxic relationship and hoped her actions would inspire others to prioritise their safety and well-being. Thank you for joining us as we delved into this harrowing case. But if you've liked this video, please make sure you press the like button. And if you want to see more, make sure you subscribe. But as always, take care out there, and I'll see you in the next one.